Imagine a tree bending in the storm. Resilience is that tree's ability to bend without breaking and to endure and continue growing even when faced with fierce winds. Good evening. It's an honor to be back here with you all today and to discuss a topic that touches every facet of our lives: resilience, a key tenet in seeking balance. Let's start at the beginning though. What exactly is resilience? At its core, it is the ability to bounce back from adversity. Resilience is deeply linked to anti-fragility, a concept I'll be exploring today that was first coined by Nassim Taleb. Anti-fragility expands the scope of resilience to not just endure, not just have the fortitude that it takes to survive, but also talks about the ability to emerge stronger and more capable from difficult times. I have found that this concept, anti-fragility, when practiced, builds skills that lead to harmony, which in turn can lead to balance. Today, I'll be sharing my journey of building resilience at work through applying the lens of anti-fragility, both in business and in my investments. I hope that through these anecdotes, I can share the three pillars on which I believe we can all practice the skill of anti-fragility, pillars on which truly the foundation of resilience lie. 1, emotional regulation. Maintaining a positive attitude is extremely important for building resilience. 2, problem solving. To think rationally and have the ability to see what's coming up. And 3, flexibility. To be ready in case things change. Let's first turn our attention to the corporate world. In business, resilience can mean the difference between thriving and failing. Resilient companies are not able to just weather economic storms or industry disruptions, but also they have the ability to turn these challenges into opportunities for growth and innovation. I'd like to highlight this through my personal experience working at Goldiam International. While Goldiam is a family business, it is publicly listed on the NSE, is governed by an independent board of directors, and has an empowered team of professional managers leading it. We operate in the jewelry manufacturing and exporting space, solely focusing on value-added jewelry exporting and jewelry production. We cater to corporate retailers in the US and in Europe, and our products target an end user that represents middle-income America. That person is a person who shops with a budget in mind. The company, which is more than 3 decades old, suddenly in 2018 faced an almost existential question. This happened with the advent of lab-grown diamonds. This product is totally undifferentiated from naturally mined diamonds. In fact, the analogy of a naturally conceived versus IVF babies is most often what is used to distinguish how or explain how the two products are essentially the same ones created. Lab-grown diamonds are chemically, physically, and visually exactly identical. However, they are available for a fraction of the price. Suddenly in 2018, we could smell the shift in demand from natural mined diamonds to lab-grown diamonds. And this brought a sea change in all that we knew and all that we had been doing for decades. In 2018, to set context, at Goldiam, we had 0 lab-grown diamond suppliers, 0 product knowledge of lab-created diamonds, 0 diamond growing machines, and 0 designs specifically built to suit the needs of the lab-grown diamond jewelry industry. So what do you do when your business is faced with being turned upside down? Let me pause here to reintroduce the concept of anti-fragility, especially in the business context. Within a company, anti-fragility refers to systems that can actually benefit from shocks and volatility. It's about creating an environment where disruption can lead to growth and improvement rather than just surviving what's going on. Trust me, in my context at Goldiam in 2018, there was nothing more disruptive and nothing more uncertain than the advent of lab-created diamonds. So how did we set up back then an environment for growth cutting through the noise and cutting through the fog. We decided to lean into this change at a very, very early time, investing over 3 times the design talent and resources needed to redesign our entire sample line of thousands of jewelry pieces to cater to larger diamonds, which through lab-grown, a lot more people could now afford. We decided to clear out our debt in totality, purposefully bringing down that year's revenue and the revenue that we could deliver in order to be ready for a change. And finally, we lowered our inventory and exposure to natural mined diamonds, while maintaining our focus to being frugal, nimble, and ready in case this shift truly became long-lasting. And this was not easy to do. We had to let go of yesterday's growth in order to sow the seeds for product disruption. We had to ensure, just like that bended tree, that we too were ready for small winds to turn into a windstorm. And that's not an insignificant pain. The idea to let go of yesterday's growth to sow seeds for a future that may or may not bear fruit is always difficult. But it allowed us to create flexibility. And without this flexibility, we would be left unavailable for that moment when things changed. Today, lab-grown diamond jewelry has gone from being 5% of our revenues in 2021 to crossing 70 to 75%. And this is now coming at a higher base too, showing that our bet to lose yesterday's growth for today's gain and bend with the wind did eventually bear fruit. Our market capitalization has, as a result, increased 10 times in the last 5 years itself. The focus has always been on problem solving and being nimble-footed. This led us to being flexible and allowed us to lean into a change. That is what was responsible for this performance. The agility and willingness to lean in didn't just help us to survive product disruption, but it positioned us to thrive in a new and transformed jewelry market. Changing hats now, as most of us often have to do, to talk about resilience through an investor's perspective. Investing, as some of my teachers at BDO would know, it's something that I loved from the time that I was at school. It inherently involves risk and the ability to remain resilient in the face of market volatility. And in investing, there really is no one else to blame. There is no place to hide. It makes your wins extremely gratifying and your losses extremely challenging. And while enduring volatility is easy to do on paper, and it's easy to do when you're managing small sums at school or college, it becomes extremely emotionally taxing when you move to managing a larger part of your assets. This is where emotional regulation and maintaining a positive but realistic mindset can make all the difference. Nassim Taleb's concept of anti-fragility is particularly relevant here too. Investors who embrace risk and embrace uncertainty, rather than fearing them, can potentially benefit from them instead of crumbling because of them. No matter how much I could and have studied finance both here and in college at UPenn, navigating market fluctuations, especially in severe downturns, was solely about managing your emotional and mental balance. We read at all times, be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. But to actually put this in practice when the whole world shouts doom or boom is extremely difficult and solely relates back to one's fortitude and capability to remain resilient. While I certainly do not have answers here, and this is a practice which is still ongoing, I remember right at the start of COVID, when anxiety, fear, and the unknown gripped financial markets, the depressed prices of March 2020 made it so clear that despite all the ills that came along with COVID, there was no better time to just cut out the noise and buy. That one decision has allowed not just me, but countless others in our country financial freedom to a degree that is otherwise unimaginable 5 years ago. Seeking out opportunities in times of crisis, is that even possible? I believe yes it is. And anti-fragility shows how volatility can not just be endured, but can be harnessed for gain. Again, this has nothing to do with one's knowledge of finance or markets or management, but primarily derives from the more spiritual core of grit and the emotional regulation needed to cut out the noise. In the corporate world, anti-fragility can be the difference between thriving and failing. It allows one and speaks about designing systems and processes that become stronger when exposed to stress. Personally, for me, that means viewing challenges as opportunities for growth rather than just mere obstacles to survive. The mindset is essential for truly creating and cultivating resilience. So what are the key takeaways from my anecdotes on building resilience here? It's that cultivating resilience doesn't just follow a single clear path. While Goldiam benefited from being nimble and being adaptive to change, I personally, as an investor in that sphere of my life, have benefited by being more resolute and cutting out the noise. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to building resilience in our personal lives, in business, or in investing. However, I believe we all can practice the skills that allow us to build systems, allow us to build processes that develop resilience in one's lives. Again, this is emotional regulation through maintaining that positive mindset and that positive mental balance. Problem solving, to think critically so that we know what's coming next and we can see into the horizon. And flexibility, to be ready in any case when the winds change. These are universal truths. Having the grit to face a challenge and the openness to learn from it is fundamental to developing resilience and thus to creating balance in our lives. Whether you're navigating a personal struggle, realigning a company through obsolescence, or making investment decisions, flexibility and optimism are invaluable. Embrace challenges cheerfully. Be open to change. And remember that every hardship presents an opportunity to improve. Thank you for your time, and I hope I leave you here today with a renewed sense of how cultivating resilience and anti-fragility can transform challenges into opportunities for growth. Thank you.